Welcome to the Happy Mama Movement podcast. I'm Amy Taylor-Kabbaz. I would like to start by acknowledging the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation on which this podcast is recorded as the traditional custodians of this land, and pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. And as this podcast is dedicated to the wisdom and knowledge of motherhood, I would like to acknowledge the mothers of this land, the elders, their wisdom, their knowing, and my own elders and teachers. Welcome back, everyone. We grow up in a world that tells us our value, our worth comes from our achievements. Even when we start school, it's about getting the right marks. It's about doing the right thing. It's just the way we're raised. Is that external validation validates us. If we're not acknowledged or celebrated by the people around us or the systems around us, who are we? That's something we should really be aware of as we enter motherhood, because when you think about the experience of motherhood, there's not really much validation of it in our culture and in our homes. We don't get an end-of-year review after the first 12 months of motherhood. We don't have annual KPIs. We don't get a pay rise. We don't even get paid. So when our world is built on a system of external validation and then that is taken away, what do? Today's interview is with the Divine Mama Rising coach and facilitator and author, Nat Biviano. Nat talks to me in this episode about her experience of realizing how much she was lost without that external validation. And when she felt that loss, how much she looked towards her husband, her partner, to tell her she was doing a good job. That without that external validation, she needed something to fill that void, and how over the last decade or so, she has transformed that to now know her own internal validation and worth. It's a beautiful conversation I know you are going to love. And at the end, please let Nat and I both know how it felt and what you took away from it. Nat, welcome to the podcast. I originally said welcome to the podcast for the first time, but then you reminded me that we've actually done this before many, many years ago. That shows how many interviews I do and how I forget who I've spoken to. But it was, when was it you were on the podcast?
2016.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Well, a lot has changed since then in both our worlds and the whole world. So welcome back. Beautiful.
Actually, it might have been 2017 now that I think about it. Anyway.
But still, a long time ago.
A while ago, yeah.
200 episodes ago about.
Is that all? Oh my God.
Yeah, that's all. But I really wanted you to come back on the podcast today because you recently have published a chapter, an essay in a beautiful collection of stories called Navigating Motherhood, and have really shared your experience of not only becoming a mother and your experience of matrescence, but also the unique but universal changes that brings to a relationship, and how you really, over the last few years, of the last 12 years, because your eldest is now 12, have redefined your sense of self to really love and celebrate and be proud of the role that you have as mother and as wife. And I know that is such a source of struggle for so many of us when we have such a clear identity of who we are, and then along comes motherhood, and suddenly that very clear role that we are celebrated for, that we are acknowledged for, changes, and we find ourselves at home. So let's start there. When you became a mama, what was your sense of self, your identity, and how did that feel to have that change?
Gosh, as you're just kind of saying that, I feel like there's tears welling up because over the last, decade plus in redefining all of this, it's taken a long time to really unhinge, unlatch, unhook from others' definition of what it meant to be a good mum, a good wife. And so, when I transitioned, coming from this corporate role where your KPIs are measured by, your level of productivity, what you can produce, how many sales you make, and how quickly you can turn this product around for launch, right? All these metrics that give us this feel of keep it on the deadline. And this is where I thrived, Amy. I thrived there because I could do it. People give me a task, I'll do it. And then they tell me what a good job I'm doing. I'm like, oh, did someone just tell me I'm doing a good job? Sweet, I'll just hang around a little bit more, right? And
Yes.
so, you get this external validation. You get quarterly, biannually reviews from your manager telling you what a good job that you've done. And you get a paycheck and you get a pay rise and you get superannuation, right? All these little external markers that say, you're doing a really good job. You're doing a really good job. We value you. And you're like, oh, I'm valued. I'm important. I must be successful. Actually, those messages were right. Go to uni, get a degree, get a good job, get well paid, all of these, tick, 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 right? And then on the other side of this line, you step into motherhood and there are no annual reviews with mothering or wifehood.
That's it. Of any of those invisible roles, there's no KPIs, there's no celebration.
No. And so that, I hope this is answering the question. So it was that identity shift, change, and morphing into, which was my biggest struggle because I didn't know who I was without that external validation. And I struggled so deeply being at home, not being told that the food that I was cooking, the clothes that I was folding, the admin that I was relentlessly looking through and reading up on and making sure house insurance direct debits were done in time, and then, making sure that book week and what days are library days, right? All the things. Those were my new KPIs. And I met them and no one told me I was doing a good job.
And what did that do when you think back to it now? What did that do, perhaps both internally and externally, when you felt like all the things you were doing were not acknowledged or not seen?
It just makes you feel so insignificant, so invisible, so not contributing any value. And because of the divine work that I've had the privilege under your wing of doing Mama Rising studies, like we get to decide what is valuable. And so I was so hooked to, unless I'm doing this at supersonic speed, if I get dinner done, get the dishes done, get this done, and then I can, see if I can start my business because, doesn't business generate income? Income, you earning money, that's valuable. All right, that's the goal. That's what I've got to do. Yeah. And so it was just this rush. And so to answer your question, how did that make me feel? I felt like a frazzled, constantly failing person because just those really unrealistic expectations that you put on yourself. And so it was definitely a task of revaluing.
I see it a lot in the women that I work with or in our community. This feel this need that they need to be doing something on the side as well as being a mama, especially in those early years. Now, for some of us, including me, that was my sanity. I couldn't just be at home. That's just not
Totally.
my brain, my nervous system, my soul is. Even if it was just listening to podcasts for my own benefit, even if it was just reading a book to expand my thinking, I needed that as a balance. But I also recognize in a lot of the women I've coached and supported over the years, some of us do that because they feel like what they're doing is not enough and they therefore have to be doing more. Like, I can't just not do this for these period of time because where's my value? What am I contributing? How am I doing this? And that's a really fine line, Nat, isn't it? It's this, why am I doing this? Am I doing this because I feel like if I don't, I'm irrelevant, I'm not valued, I'm not seen? Or am I doing this because it lights me up and makes me feel like I can handle motherhood better?
Just such a beautiful distillation of what questions I really needed to answer. And I didn't even know that those were the questions that I was grappling with, because in the quicksand of it all, you're just it's so chaotic, and you have no time to just even sit down and ponder these things.
And so how did you begin to see what it was that you needed to do?
I so concur with you when you say I need something outside the home. It was not my greatest joy, desire, passion to always be at home. I needed stuff outside the home. And so this is, you step back and you recognize in yourself, what are my needs? I do need that intellectual stimulation. And if going back to corporate walls will provide that for me, I realized it wasn't. Because that, for me, felt very suffocating, to be behind four walls and just with just rigid rules that didn't allow creativity that I wanted. So me knowing I love that need to do something sent me on this quest to kind of go, well, what is that?
Oh, I love that. Yeah. It's like they say, sometimes knowing what you don't want is the first step to knowing what you do want. So
Totally.
even just dipping your toe back into corporate, and I'm sure so many of the mamas listening, like, we've all done that, right? Like, oh no, maybe if I go back to work, I'll feel better. And you get there and you're like, oh no, this isn't it either. And that's unraveling. If you feel like you're not valued at home and then you go back to work or you try and balance it and you can't do a great job there either because you can't show up as much as you used to, that's a really unraveling, unsteady place for us to land as women who are so used to that external validation.
And so it begins.
And so it begins.
And then what's that beautiful saying, when vision pulls?
Oh, yes. Pain pushes until vision pulls. Dr. Michael Beckwith. We use it in Mama Rising training a lot.
Yes.
Pain pushes until vision pulls.
Oh, gosh,
so what does that mean to you?
It's like the pain of going back to work felt like just spiritual suicide. And I'm like, but I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what it looks like. And it's that unknowing that was agonizing. And then the vision pulling piece is like, well, what is it? What is the heart magnetizing to? What are you being pulled to do? Where are your butterflies guiding you? Where is your North Star just nudging? And it was in the space of relationships. Because at the time, I'm still looking for my significance and importance. So I was my husband's co-pilot in his automotive business. And so let me tell you, I do not give a shit about radiators. Right?
That was not the vision that was pulling you.
That was not the vision, Amy. And I hear this frequently because that's what a good wife does, right? Supports her husband in the family business. And today, till this day, I'm still across it because, I need to know our numbers in our family business. Mm-hmm. But I'm nowhere near as involved or nowhere near as I need to do this for him and for us in that way. No, that was really lying to myself. Mm. My heart doesn't skip a beat in that way.
Yeah. I also know that in your story and in so many of the women you've worked with, when we do lose that external validation and we aren't sure where we're meant to be going and we don't know what's pulling us yet, we can often look to our partners to give us that validation. And that makes sense, therefore, to step into the family business. Like, look what I'm contributing, look how I'm going. And again, so many women I've spoken with over the years, they end up looking for that recognition of what you've done today, feeling like, can someone please just see I'm here and what I'm doing, even if it is 3 hours of Play-Doh and 2 trips to the library and all the things with the kids. Because when we step back from that external validation in the outside world, we put a lot of pressure on our family, our partners and our kids to validate us in that way too, don't we?
Yes. And gosh, I saw myself so deeply in just what you described then, because when, we are in our own little pocket of a family of 4, we're away from our family of origin and support and, the village, right? We are away from that. So once these needs were met by other people, they don't exist anymore or so minimal of it, we do put those pressures on our husband. And that was what I did to my husband. You need to validate me. You need to tell me what a good job I'm doing. You need to do this. And so I'm outsourcing. I'm making him responsible for my own happiness.
But God, Nat, don't we all do that? I know, but in the sense of, isn't that such a common response in that early transition of matrescence where we have, like, it actually makes me emotional, not only remembering my own period of time like that, but as always, emotional for all women I've heard over the years, where suddenly we're yanked from this system that gave us our identity and our value and our sense of achievement. We're thrown into this new role that we have no idea how to do, this thing called motherhood that we thought should be natural and easy, and suddenly you're like, oh my God, what the hell? And so we turn to our partners and be like, hey, I need you to tell me I'm doing a good job. I need you to see what I'm doing. Don't walk in from work at the end of the day and be like, what have you done today? Like, we really, it's such a heart heavy when I think about it, time for so many. We're just wanting to be seen and validated and told, I can see how hard you're trying. I can see what a great job you're doing. And it's so hard not to externalize that in that period of time.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I'm just like hearing what you're saying and what, when we meet our partners, they see how competent, capable, independent, and they're already like, she's got this. She's so capable. She's so, like, she doesn't even need the validation. She has got it. And then we step into this foreign territory called motherhood. No one knows what the hell they're doing. But in his eyes, he's like, she knows what she's doing. She's competent, capable, independent, all of those things that he still sees us as. And then for us to step into this role of cooking, cleaning, changing nappies, dealing with patients, all of these new skill sets that we haven't exercised as much, we are such amateurs in, it's a struggle to say, this is really hard. I'm really struggling. Instead, we say, can't you tell me what a good job I'm doing? And he's going, what?
Yeah.
Why do you need that? You are so capable.
Yeah. That's so true, Matt.
And so I feel like what happens in that dynamic is that we've held on to this inability to be vulnerable, to go, holy shit, babe, I've no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I really had to get praises from work to tell me that I was doing a good job. That's when I knew I was doing a good job, when someone would tell me. And so now that I'm here, no one's telling me, and I'm really struggling.
Yeah.
Man, that brought up something quite visceral, because it still is, and it's just this armor that we wear because that's what we're told to be. That's what we're told to do. Get on with it. You can do this. What's your problem? You got this. Go, girl. You know, like those messages. And of course, that is so true and necessary to carry us through. But the reality is, when we don't know what we're doing, it is safe, okay, necessary, and essential to say, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I really need to share with you how wobbly I am, how fractured I feel. And in that softening and in that vulnerability, it is so hard, Amy. It is so hard for women of our generation to get to that place.
Yeah.
This is precisely the theme that my clients have such difficulty getting to.
Yeah. I 100% recognize that I couldn't do that in motherhood with my ex-husband. 100% found it incredibly difficult over and over again to drop the armor of, because it's such a powerful thing you've said, Nat, because so much of our identity is shifting and changing in the experience of motherhood that we desperately want to hang on to at least the strong independent part, or at least the I can do this part. And so it's like the final frontier, right? It's the final part of our old selves, because our old selves are independent and strong and can meet every challenge head on, and we can smash this and we can do this. So to let that go in the middle of everything else, like, that's scary as hell.
Yes.
It's the ultimate gift of this experience of matrescence, right? I mean, one of the biggest parts of the Mama Rising training is redefining our strengths, redefining this sense of, instead of putting the wall up and saying, it's fine, I've got it, I can do it, learning how to bravely and safely tap into this sense of, it's okay for me to not know how to do this, and ask for help or communicate this differently. Like, 15 years on, I'm still learning how to do that one.
I love how you just tapped onto, it is your nervous system, and your nervous system is a completely different animal, and that's who runs the show.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the skill here is, how do I make my nervous system my ally?
How do you do that? So, Guru Matt, how do we do that?
Oh my gosh, that is like...
just solve all of our problems, please. No, in all honesty, all we can do is share what's worked for us. So in your divine experience of being so brave and jumping into this for yourself, and now for the couples and clients you work with, how do we start to communicate what we need to shift from that external validation to the internal, and then communicate what we need in a way that is vulnerable yet safe?
Okay. Here's what I've learned, and where the starting point would be. So for those who are listening, who have resonated with both our stories, with being, really type A, ambitious, highly independent woman, having all the confidence in the world. Here's what I've discovered. There's 2 levels of confidence. There's the superficial confidence, right, on the outside. So superficially, Nat's got it. Amy's rocking and rolling. My God, what do you mean? Confident as all hell. Can jump into a podcast, no problem. Express herself. Yep, no worries. Can go to a networking event and talk to random strangers. Yep, no worries. Confident, right? On the outside, superficial confidence. I can do this, right? So things on the outside telling me, and yeah, okay, cool. That's the first layer of confidence, which is necessary, right? We have to put ourselves out there. But what's more important, and what pertains to your question, how do we do this, is getting to the second layer of confidence, which is the cellular confidence. So there's superficial and then there's cellular. Cellular confidence is closing your eyes, pausing, taking that big, deep breath in, and remembering who you are. And this is tapping into that feminine intuition. And if I may borrow the words of one of my beautiful clients who just sobbed, she said, I don't even know where that intuition is. We lose ourselves. She said it's buried. And so anything that's buried is almost dead, right? It's in the grave. And so this is our work. To get to cellular confidence, we have to start excavating. Let's find her again. Let her rise. Let us no longer be lost in this labyrinth of motherhood. Because when we know who we are, what our true values are, when we stop shoulding all over ourselves, I should do this, I should be that, I should be grateful, I should da, 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 da. When we stop the shoulding, that means we're living to someone else's expectations. That's someone else's voice when we say should. When we listen to what our own voice is, this is getting closer to finding, building, strengthening our cellular confidence.
Yeah. I'm really glad you said the words of your client that, I don't even know where that is. It's buried so deep. I think some of us know what that is, that cellular confidence, or we may have felt it in some times in our life and we've lost it. But for others, it's never been found. It's something they never felt. Again, I've spoken with women over the years who have like, Amy, I don't think I've ever known who I am outside of who I should be as a good girl or a successful woman. I don't know if I've ever excavated that true self within me. And I often say in those situations, that's okay because it's still the same process. Whether you've never found it or you had it last week and it's gone again, right. It's the same damn process every time. And for me, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in a moment, but for me, it is about creating that space and that time and a container that feels safe, perhaps with someone like you, Nat, someplace where you can safely and beautifully begin to chip away and dig down and find who she is underneath all of that. Whether you've known who you are and you've lost it or you've never known, it's the same process, isn't it?
100%. And, I imagine those who are listening to this and are resonating, and I almost can anticipate the question of, yeah, but I know that. Tell me how. Tell me, I need to know how. So there's this head-heart incongruency, right? My head knows that I should be doing this. My head intellectually understands that this is what I need. I know it. but it's the getting into the body. So how do we marry those two concepts? How do we marry the head, the masculine? Do. This is what I'm thinking. I know I need to do this. My body feels this. It's aching. I'm so lost. I don't know what I'm doing. Right. All of these vulnerabilities. How do we marry those two things together? And as you were alluding to, right, you're kind of going, it's just scratching away. And the way that you were describing it was just this beautiful, paced process where you're just easing through it, right, with just grace and with tenderness. And it's just so delicate, which just requires time. And what I generally hear is women like, tell me how. And even in the questioning is a very, there must be some pill or some bullet or some course that I can do for 2 weeks, 6 weeks that will give me this embodiment of feminine energy.
It's an impatience.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is understandable. I mean, not only, excuse language warning here, not only do we not have time for that shit, because it's bedtime and bath time and tomorrow we have to get ready for book week again, but also our culture, our world is just skip the hard parts and get to the win. And in this unraveling, unhinging, all of the beautiful words you've used in this interview, I think part of that is actually seeing the excavation as the best bit. Like, scary, don't get me wrong, but it's actually the best bit. If you can find a place, space and energy where you get to go, oh my God, what's underneath all of this crap? That is the gold. My goodness.
Yes. It's like, you know, when we uncover and all this masculine, feminine energy work that you have just been, you know, such a mentor for me in this space, where we're talking about the masculine is the achievement, the acquisition. I've got it. The feminine is the process, the creativity, the movement, the water. And then I think when we kind of try and do this work and go, all right, tell me the one thing that I need to do to kind of get my head to my heart and meet it, it's like as if the expectation is, that is the expectation that you will have this outcome. And even the approach in itself is a very masculine approach. And there in itself is the lesson, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And it loops all the way back to what we started with, which is this, you know, the masculine energy is up and out. That's the definition of the energy. The feminine energy is in and down. So when we are up and out, we're looking for external validation. We're looking for those KPIs. We're looking for notice me. And it's not just a negative energy. I mean, my goodness, we need masculine energy in our lives. Otherwise, we'd never get anything done. We need leadership and we need that in motherhood, let alone life.
100%.
But there needs to be, as you beautifully described, this cellular knowing that we can come back to, so that if we feel invisible, if the mother load that we're holding day in, day out is getting heavy, if our kids have just been taking for days and we feel like we're just running on empty, instead of looking up and out around saying, you know, tell me I'm doing a good job, or I don't know, creating a business so you can feel successful or whatever that is, to have the awareness and skills to instead go in and down to validate ourselves. That's it, isn't it?
You and your juicy distillations, because that's precisely it. So essentially, when I kept asking my husband to tell me what a good job I was doing, I bypassed myself and didn't even think to say to myself, sweetheart, gorgeous girl, new mama, holy shit, you're doing a good job. Because I was so fixated on what the outside world, I was waiting for it. And this is one of the pillars that I work with my clients is don't ask for permission. Don't ask for someone else to tell you.
Yeah.
Don't ask for permission.
Find it within. Yeah.
And we are just
so
not even giving ourselves the permission to kind of say to ourselves, damn, we're doing a good job.
And so now, having not only done this for yourself, but with so many others through your work, on a day-to-day basis, what does it look like to now embody this in your home, in your relationships, in how you approach work, in how you live from cellular confidence and that inner check-in first? What does that look like on a day-to-day basis now?
So in real time, it looks like prioritizing drop-off and not taking my phone in, literally walking to the classroom with my kids. My kids are now in year 7 and year 4, and I'm still that mum that'll walk with them if they let me, and I'll take it and lap it up as and when they still accept me to do that. And in that presence, because the feminine is all about just in the pause, in the moment, being there with them, listening to what's going on in their little world. I'm not like helicoptering him. I'm actually 2 steps ahead of him while he's walking with his buddy. I'm actually getting in my walk. So it feels good. You're kind of merging a few things in, but it's that pocket of time where you have zero digital distraction and you're just there with them. That's what it looks like on a daily basis. This sounds so, at the risk of sounding so simple that it's stupid.
I get that.
I bet someone's kind of going, surely it can't be that simple. And it actually is.
But it is. It is. And then really acknowledging to yourself what you've just done, right? Yeah. So when you get back in the car, you're like, you were just totally present there, and that's awesome. Well done. Like it's the validation, it's the acknowledgement, it's the celebration, it's the seeing yourself and what you do.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Amy, you just nailed it. Because the previous version of myself would be like, oh my God, you've wasted all this time. That was an extra 20 minutes. You could have done this instead, right? So valuing something else, productivity, getting something, whatever, creative. Right.
Yeah.
Now, I love that you've just made that distinction, because now the self-talk is like, wow, look at you show up for your kid in that way.
Yeah. And then show up for your client fully present and not worried about not being there for your kid. I mean, this is how it flows on, right? And being with your partner fully present and not feeling bad about where you are. It's such a bloody process. It's such a journey. And I hate the word journey, as you know. But I've tried for like a decade to think of a different way to explain it. But it is. It's just this daily, hourly, minute by minute practice of switching out of that taskmaster in our mind that is looking for ways to be successful, feel good, feel validated, and instead shift this internal system. It's profound, and yet it's also incredibly simple, as you just pointed out. But my goodness, it's a practice every damn day. Yeah.
And it's really just eliminating the integrity tax that you pay.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is like, this is where we marry up our values and live our values. Because if I walk around saying, God, I love my husband, God, I love my kids, I just love them and I just want to be present with them, and that's what matters to me. Because if tomorrow we all get hit by a bus, whatever, that's it. What else have you got? What else have you got? And so for me, it's like, that is my value. And I hear this in everyone else too, right? I'm sure I'm not the only one that kind of feels that that's my value. Okay, so then what are my actions and my behaviors that align with that value? Am I scrolling? Am I doing things that aren't attributing and feeding that value? And this is what I mean by integrity tax. I'm saying one thing, but I'm doing another thing. And so that gap is the tax that you pay. This is integrity tax. I'm saying this, but I'm doing this. I really value my health, but you know what? Macca's drive-through, it's fine. Right? I'm saying one thing, doing another thing. And Macca's drive-through is totally fine if you say, today's a cheat day. My health is not my priority this week, today. Lots on, drive-through it is. Then you just pay less integrity tax because you are actually doing something that's in line with what you're saying. I find that that's our biggest trap.
Oh, I love that. We could do another whole episode on the integrity tax. My goodness. But what I feel like, if you line those things up, what you say and what you do, that's where cellular confidence comes from.
Yes.
It's that closing your eyes and going, no, I'm doing this. We're not talking about perfectionism here, but, I am living what I want in most cases as much as I can, and that feels damn good. And from this place, I will show up in my relationship, in my work, in my motherhood, in my life. Yes.
And just as, I love how you said this, these little steps, these excavation steps where we start. Nothing's ever kind of sequential or linear. It just happens in this kind of very fluid way. It feels like that is like how you start redefining success. That is how you start redefining value.
Yeah.
This is my value.
I agree.
I am so successful today. I feel so good in my body today. I feel so happy because I lived my value. Because I said I did what is meaningful to me. I'm in closer congruency in my life. So therefore I feel happy. So therefore I'm not, kind of pestering my husband because I feel a void. You need to say this to me to make me happy. This is the whole, I fill my own cup.
Yeah. Oh, Nat, what a beautiful reminder for all of us, perhaps something that someone's heard for the first time, but what a beautiful reminder of what this looks like on a day-to-day basis, because I really do feel that we talk a lot about this. Our head gets it. We know what the theory is. We understand it in that sense, but to then embody it, live it, line up with it, that's the daily practice. So thank you for reminding us of what that looks like and feels like and sounds like. You and I just always do that. We just breathe together.
Just soak it in. This is elixir. It's so good.
It is. See, this is the present. This is the moment. This is embodying it. Congratulations on the chapter in this divine new book. I'll put all the details in the show notes. It is phenomenal to witness you rising and rising in this role, in this embodiment of what this work looks like. I'm so proud of what you're doing, and thank you for sharing it with us today.
My greatest pleasure. Thank you, Amy, for always just being such a magnificent mentor in my life. So much gratitude to you.
And to you, beautiful. Thank you. To speak to women like Nat is such a joy. To see how they have taken their experience of motherhood, matrescence, weaved it into their own experience and are now sharing it with others is one of my greatest joys. And I love how passionate Nat is. Nat oozes the divine feminine power of holding space for other people's stories. And you can read her story in one of the essays, which is part of a new collection of essays called Navigating Motherhood, a practical guide for everyday mums. And you can also find out how to work with Nat in the show notes. Please remember that you can enroll for Mama Rising, the coaching training program, at mamarising.net, or find a coach just like Nat that you can work with to move through your matrescence experience, whether it's within your relationship, returning to work, within your sense of self. We have divine coaches and facilitators all over the world who are there to help you excavate yourself in this experience. Until next week, thank you for being here. Sat Nam.